You are now listening to Sentinel Soundbytes.
So we are live. All right.
All right. We'd like to welcome you back to the Sentinel Soundbytes podcast. Today we've got a fun one. Principally speaking, we're kind of mixing things up. We're on a podcast talking about a radio station. So here with me, I have none other than our own Dr. Chris Brown and Mr. Jeremy Turner. Gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for both for, one, making this happen, two, taking the time to sit down with me. And I want to get right to it because we're a school that has a radio station. And I'm going to ask Dr. Brown to kind of lead off because he shared some history with me that this is almost a lifelong project for a man who's built rockets and teaches here to want to have a radio station. So can you give us a little kind of behind the curtain of how this came to be, and feel free to even dial it back to maybe some of the inspiration if you want.
Ooh, yeah, we'll go all the way back to the beginning. So the FCC has a program called LPFM, Low Power FM. It started with the legislation in the late 90s, and it actually launched in 2003. So way back then, I was in college right here at UAH, my beloved alma mater, and we found out about this program, and we said we want a student radio station. And we did a lot of work, and a lot of things happened. And if you live in Huntsville, you know that there's not a student radio station at UAH. So fast forward a couple of decades, I'm here at ASCTE, and I remember that experience at UAH, and I said, I wonder if that program still exists. And I started looking it up, and yes, it does still exist. And I found out, interestingly, they only open a window for filing applications for these stations every 10 years. Yes, literally once every 10 years. And it so happened that this was the summer of 23. I was looking this up, and November of 23 was the next one, right? It had been 10 years, and there was a filing window coming up. And I said, you know what, that's pretty cool. Let's just see, let's see what could happen. There's never been a high school radio station in North Alabama. We're the first one. There's some other places in the country, California and places like that, where there's a longer history of it and there's a lot of stations, but North Alabama never had one before. And I took it to our leadership here, and Mr. Massey was very supportive, as he always is. And he just thought that sounded great. And so we kind of got the ball rolling at that point, went through that application process, and expected that it would take a long time. Normally, this thing takes up to a year before you actually could get what they call a construction permit, which allows you to build a station. So we applied in November. That filing window closes in the beginning of December of 23. And I'm thinking, we're just not going to hear anything for a year, right? And they just all these reviews they go through, and there's kind of a point system. Like if other people apply for the same frequency, there's this whole process. It's very involved, and it normally just takes a long time. So January of 24, it's been, 6 weeks or something. We get a notice that we got our construction permit, unimpeded with no restrictions on it. And I'm just shocked, right? I'm like, well, I guess now we have to do this thing, right? We can't go back now. And so that's when we started the real planning for it. And I got this guy, Jeremy Turner, involved. And we started planning how that would be. And we kind of decided with our CFO at the time that, hey, we need to plan. But new fiscal year, October 1st for the state, is when we would start buying equipment and really in earnest start working on it. So we did that, got equipment together, bought a lot of stuff, got a studio built. Mr. Ed Long, one of the unsung heroes of this campus, built out a studio for us, and we set up all the equipment and the antenna, the tower on the roof and all this stuff. That that tower that you can see if you drive down Bradford Drive, you can see that thing on top of the dorm building. Got all that set up, and we launched the station. Had a big party right here in the academic building on October 1st of 25, and went live on the air. So that is the short version of how this got started. And we're still just, improving, doing better, figuring things out. and making it better, hopefully all the time.
Well, I appreciate the history lesson, and now we're going to dig through kind of pieces of that. And Mr. Turner, I want to loop you in. First off, for allowing us to use your studio, and the room we sit in is where you operate out of, teaching rock band and guitar class and all of our kids' music, and it's so fun to walk past. But I want to dial back to when Dr. Brown approaches you and like what goes through your mind when you get asked, "Hey, do you want to help start a radio station?" Was there any what came to mind when that got thrown at you?
The same thing that usually comes to mind when I'm excited about something that I know very little about, just an unequivocal yes.
Yeah, there we go.
I was very excited to help however I could. There's been a lot of learning. Um, there's a lot of rules and guidelines that come along with working with entities like the FCC. But it's just like a never-ending learning process for me. And it's really exciting for me too because, creatively, what I aspire to do here is to, inspire kids to actually not just learn how to technically play an instrument, but to be able to create something that's original. And, my hope is that we'll be able to get students' original music broadcast on the radio station. So that's what I'm really hoping for, and I'm excited about.
Well, I know it comes with, and after the history lesson and just, it's a radio station. I mean, it's exactly what you would think of with that. We're the same as whatever. But can you give us a little of the technicality on like this low frequency power? Like, what does that mean? What's our reach? Like, where? I know I live in South Huntsville, and when we were playing our Christmas play, I was able to like faintly pick it up. So what's like the technicalities? How does this thing work?
Yeah, low power FM for the FCC is defined as a 100 watt or less radiated power from the antenna. So you think about your major stations, 100,000 watts is the max. You think about a mega station like a WGN Chicago or those kind of things, they're putting out 100,000 watts, a crazy amount of power. So we are at 100 watts, no thousand on that, 100 watts. And that is the max in this program. So that gives you, at about a 3.5 mile radius, you're going to get a good signal. And what we found here that honestly surprised me is our range of a passable signal is a lot further. So if you're going down the interstate and you pass the airport, you can still listen to the station past the airport. And that's several miles away from here. If you're over the mountain, and for our Huntsville folks, if you're Hampton Cove in that area, there are spots where you can get it bouncing through the canyons there. You can pick it up on Highway 431 down there. You can pick it up going toward Harvest. So yeah, 3.5 to 4 miles is your really good radius, but we can get it out a lot further than that.
Okay, well, very cool. And I know you mentioned Mr. Long as an unsung hero. I know another one that is probably a sung hero that wasn't available to be on the show is one of our seniors, Christian McBroom. And Mr. Turner, I'm gonna let you kind of talk about maybe what some of Christian's involvement was and how he helped bring this thing to light. It was part of his internship program, if you're familiar with how our school is structured. So he was able to be here with you during the day building this thing. Can you kind of talk through, and either of you can certainly answer this, but start with Mr. Turner on like what his involvement was and what he allowed us to do with his work.
Yeah, so he was a major help in getting operations up and running. After the studio was built, equipment installed, software installed, you would think that, all right, we're ready to go. And that's what I thought, but it turns out there was a lot more tedious work to be done. And Christian was extremely helpful, in that way. There was a lot that he did where in the end I was asking him, I'm like, tell me a little bit more about this. He's super bright. So, I do miss him. It was nice to be able to work alongside him. We definitely wouldn't have been up and running as quickly as we were without his help. So yeah, I'm very appreciative to have gotten to work with Christian. And I hope in the future, that there's an opportunity for more students to get the kind of experience that he got. Because I know that he learned a lot.
So, and I appreciate you sharing that on Christian, and it's, I mean, all of our kids' opportunities they get, but to do something so unique and to build something, I hope he feels a lot of pride in. So we've talked about the equipment and kind of what this is and why it is and where it is. Can you educate us a little bit? Still, things like this aren't cheap, and it takes certainly manpower, but it also takes dollar bills to make this happen. So, and I know the way this came to be was kind of unique. Dr. Brown, can you talk a little bit about the process of how it really came to be.
Yeah, our previous CFO really helped out with some budgeting and helped us get started. As I said before, we kind of waited for a new fiscal year so we could get it in the budget and have a certain amount set aside. But a real game changer was when Peggy Lee Wright, our foundation executive director, was able to secure a grant from Northrop Grumman for $20,000, which is a huge amount of money, right? That was a huge gift for us. And that really put us over the edge on being able to get the equipment we wanted, being able to purchase music, because you still have to buy the music that you play, even apart from doing licensing and all of that. So that money that Miss Wright secured for us really was everything as far as being able to get the final setup done on the station and being able to have that kind of seed money to get us going.
As this thing came, Dr. Brown, you mentioned that kind of launch party. I know that over Christmas we actually played a school Christmas play that Miss Krause and the drama team acted. It was a play written by one of our former students and alumni, Aiden Hershey. So shout out to him for that. But getting to listen to ASCTE students in the studio enacting this Christmas play was amazing. But I feel like we really kind of made our mark when Huntsville Reddit discovered the radio station. Can you kind of educate us on what happened and how this radio station was discovered by Huntsville Reddit?
Yeah, that was a high water mark for us. We were finally, we got a big break, right? It's like a band. So we launched on October 1st, like I said. But when we launched, we were really just doing kind of the most basic thing we could, which was playing music and having the basic fun. You know, you have to have a station ID every hour and that kind of thing. But otherwise, it was just music. And it's a fairly eclectic playlist. We opened it up for everybody to contribute, like, what do you think should be on the air? And we got this song list that really covers the spectrum of genre. And we basically had that on shuffle, and that's what was playing on the radio to start with. And so what happened is by November, a little before Thanksgiving is when it blew up on Reddit. But by November, people have just found it on their radio dial as they're driving around. But with nothing but a station ID and music and no DJs or anything else, they're all starting to ask each other, like, what is this mystery station that's just playing random songs all day with no commercials? And, you know, and eventually somebody who knew what to do looked it up and said, oh, it's ASCTE. They have a radio station now. But that was a big deal. Like that said, hey, the community is listening to this and we're having some reach. And administration got really excited about that and said, oh, you know, what are some of the things that we can do with this audience and this new reach that we have? And and like we said, it gives a real platform for student work to be broadcast. And so we had that Christmas play that Aiden Hershey had written that got performed. And I hope that becomes an annual tradition to play his Christmas radio drama on the air every year. And like Jeremy said, we're really trying to get a lot more student content as we go forward.
Yeah. So what, like, to piggyback off that, what you mentioned a little bit earlier, like what is maybe your vision individually, collectively on what some of that looks like? Or like, are we talking talk shows? Are we, you mentioned the student music, like, is there any kind of projects that at least are in the brain space that we're looking to cook up with this thing?
Yeah. So there are students right now that I'm working with to create original music. And so the idea is that we're going to get, student songs to a point where they're polished enough to record here in the studio, and then we can actually broadcast that on the radio station. Did I answer your full question?
Yeah,
there?
totally. That was great. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
We have some other things that students want to do, though. We had one who wants to do a literary discussion as an on-air show. And we have a student who has already been recording sessions of Dungeons and Dragons campaigns.
okay.
And he wants to have that be a kind of a running thing where you can listen in to their D&D campaign and thematic with the name of the station, since we are WD&D.
WD&D. Well, that, I feel like that is anytime a good way to kind of sign off. And Dr. Brown, I'm gonna let you educate everyone on, if they're flipping through their FM dials, where can they find us? And I know we've got some call signs and some fun. This is your time to shine when you can identify station identifier. So I'll allow you to do that.
That's right. We are WD&D, and it is 101.7 FM on your radio dial. And coming, hopefully by the end of the school year, we will also have some online streaming. So some of those parents around the state might be able to listen in to what their kids are putting on the air.
Amazing. Well, you heard it here first. Video did not, in fact, kill the radio star. So we are still rolling here at ASCTE. Just one of the many things we're doing that are different and unique, and being one of the first and the only school in North Alabama to have something is something we take pride in, but it's something that our students can learn and grow from. And excited to scratch the personal itch for Dr. Brown and bring this story back full circle 20 years later. So, gentlemen, appreciate both of you and the work you've done behind this, and look forward to hearing you on the wave soon. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are live. All right.